Pleased to say the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey, is joining us now. Good morning, Sir Ed. Haven't spoken to you forever. You're in Harpenden this morning. Is it to launch your election campaign?
Yes, hello Kay, it's good to talk to you. Yeah, I'm here in Harpenden to launch the Liberal Democrats local election campaign. In many ways I wish we were launching our general election campaign today. I think we need a general election. Looks like the Prime Minister's bottled it, but there will be local elections on May the 2nd, and I think that gives people a chance across England to send the Conservatives a really strong message that they want them gone, and particularly on issues like the NHS. When I'm campaigning across the country, Kay, it's the NHS that keeps coming up from people. They're really fed up with the fact that they can't get a GP appointment, there's not an NHS dentist, the long waits for cancer and so on, and long waits for ambulances. And I think people really want a change.
So how are you going to reduce ambulance delays?
Well, I think two things. First of all, we want to make sure that ambulances are properly supported. We've got a big reform programme for ambulance service across the country. But here's something that we're launching today, which is a bit unusual, and it addresses some of the problems. So last year, for example, nearly 20,000 older people who had a fall and called an ambulance had to wait for more than 4 hours. That is really poor, and it's got a lot worse in recent years. And so is there a way that we can prevent those falls in the first place? I'm here in Harpenden, in Hertfordshire, and they've tried a programme which has been really successful so people don't trip and slip and fall in their homes. And it's about going into people's homes, giving them advice, particularly the over 75s who are most vulnerable, making sure that there are non-slip mats, good lighting and so on, preventing those falls in the first place. And that's really good for the health of those people. It means they less likely to fall, and it takes the pressure off the ambulances. So everybody wins from this health prevention, health promotion and fall prevention programme.
OK. Let's reflect on your involvement in the Post Office scandal. What would you have done differently in your position as Post Office Minister?
Well, first off, Kay, I mean, my heart goes out to those hundreds of sub-postmasters who've been involved in this outrageous scandal where some have gone to prison, lost loads of money, it's affected their health. I have two constituents who I'm campaigning for justice for. And when I look back at those times, first of all, I wish I'd seen Alan Bates earlier. I sent him a letter 11 days into office on the advice officials saying that the government didn't run the post office and therefore referred him to the post office managers. He got a bit angry, and I understand that. He's a really good man. I believe I was the first minister to see him, and I listened to his points, and he gave them in a really forceful way, and I put all his points to the post office. And I have to tell you, Kay, when I look back and reflect on that, I'm pretty angry about the lies that I was told by the post office. I'll give you a specific example. Alan Bates talked about his concerns that Fujitsu, the IT contractor of post office, had remote access into the Horizon IT systems of a sub-postmaster, and that was causing these problems with their balances and leading to prosecutions. So I put that specific point to the post office, and they told me in terms that there was no remote access. And if you watch the ITV drama, that was the really key point. And it was only till we got an insider from Fujitsu who blew the whistle that we found, I think it was in 2015, that there was this problem. And then, of course, the High Court in 2019 showed that was a problem. So, when I reflect on it, I wish I hadn't fallen for the lies of the post office. Ministers before me, ministers after me also believed what they were being told, and I wish I hadn't.
I mean, you did write to Mr. Bates very soon after you'd taken office in no uncertain terms saying, "I do not believe a meeting would serve any useful purpose." Obviously, that's not the case. You did see him subsequently in the October. What should you have done differently?
Well, I've said I wish I'd seen him right at the start. I followed the advice, and the advice was that the post office was run by the post office. There's arm's length to the government.
Forgive me, we only have a limited amount of time. I'm not asking about the post office. I'm not asking about your officials. I'm asking about you as an elected official who was given the responsibility as the post office minister. Looking back on it, what should you have done differently?
Well, as I said, Kay, looking back on it, I wish I hadn't fallen for the lies of the post office. I mean, I
So you
put
didn't do enough research
Alan
into
Bates's
it.
questions. Well, to be fair, and I think this will come out in the public inquiry, and I'm looking forward to giving evidence, I think ministers over 20 years from when Horizon was brought in 1999
about you, Sir Ed. You weren't across your brief, were you?
Yeah.
You weren't across your brief, were you?
No, I'm afraid I disagree with that, Kay. I met Alan Bates. I think it was the first post office minister to meet him. I put his arguments to the post office, and I'm afraid I was told a tissue of lies. And what's really irritating, Kay, is we found subsequently that the post office knew they were lying to ministers. Well, I'm afraid if someone lies to you, I mean, I was brought up to trust the post office. It was one of the most trusted organisations in our country until this outrageous scandal where so many sub-postmasters have been badly treated. And to be honest, Kay, that is my focus at the moment. We need to make sure these postmasters are properly compensated and quickly. They're totally exonerated. And I think we need to look at the system changes.
14 years ago that he first wrote to you. You're blaming Fujitsu, you're blaming the post office, you're blaming your officials. You were the post office minister. What level of responsibility do you have to accept that 14 years on, after you were first approached by Alan Bates, they still haven't got what they deserve?
Well, I think that is wrong, and I think the government knew, particularly after the 2019 High Court case. That's a really important date, that, in 2019. That's when a judge showed and exonerated a lot of sub-postmasters, including Alan Bates, because of the whistleblower, because the lies were finally exposed. And since 2019, I'm afraid the government have dragged their heels, both on the inquiry and then subsequently on compensation.
I'm talking about you. Would you like to take this opportunity to apologise to every single one of those sub-postmasters and mistresses who have found themselves in the position they have today? You were the post office minister at the time and you couldn't even be bothered to have a meeting with him. I do not believe a meeting would serve any useful purpose. Now's your opportunity, I suppose, to say, I'm really sorry I didn't see you at my first opportunity, and going forward, I will do everything in my power, I'm still an elected official, to do what I can to make sure you get the money you deserve.
Well, Kay, you're right. I did write to Alan Bates 11 days into office, and I did say I wasn't prepared to meet him, but I changed my mind when he wrote back. I did meet him. I was the first post office minister to meet him. I listened to him. I've said sorry for the fact that I failed to see him the first time that he wrote. And I said sorry that I didn't see through the post office lies. They lied on an industrial scale, and that's the huge scandal. And we need to see them brought to justice, and above all, for the hundreds of sub-postmasters, including 2 of my constituents, they need justice. They need fair compensation, and quickly.
OK, I'll let you get out of the rain, Sir Ed. Thank you for taking the time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.